This is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, a podcast and radio program presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan.
Driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
And now, here he is, your host, Jim Ervin.
Baby, I'm home.
Well, hi there. Thank you so much, Parker, and welcome, everyone. I'm Jim Ervin, and this is Time Signatures. Today's guest has been called one of the premier torchbearers of deep soul and roots music. It has been said that he knows how to fill dance floors, but he also knows how to connect with his audience in a real way. In fact, soul blues master Johnny Rawls once called him the soul healer. He is a three-time BMA nominee for Best Soul Blues Album, and since 1993, he has performed thousands of shows in New England from his home base in Montpelier, Vermont. But his proverbial star is on the rise, and he is enjoying incredible growth in his fan base across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to welcome Dave Keller. Man, I don't know who writes your stuff, but they really need a raise, brother. I mean, I'm ready to go to a Dave Keller concert right now. We just met.
Really? All right. You can give me the raise, man. I write all that stuff myself.
Yeah.
I mean, not only quotes, like, you know.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you, man. And I want to start talking about your roots, no pun intended. Where did your musical journey begin, man?
Well, you know, I grew up in Worcester, Mass, till I was 11, kind of a industrial city. I have two brothers, and we sang a lot around the house. You know, my dad and my mom, you know, enjoyed music. My dad especially loved music. He actually loved classical music. He loved symphony and opera and jazz. He had a bunch of jazz records too. But we would dance around the house to Harry Belafonte, the Banana Boat song, things like that. And then as I got older, it was I had an aunt. I still have an aunt, my aunt Wanda Borky, who worked for A&M Records, and she would bring us records, and so we would sing those records. We also sang along with Sgt. Pepper's. That was a big one. My brother, and then I got, you know, in middle school, I was super into music and got really into, like, Styx was my favorite band, and then eventually in high school, it was just, you know, kind of some of the weirder, you know, stuff that you'd hear in the 80s. It was kind of, I don't know, it was not a great time for roots music per se. But then towards the end of the 80s, you've got the blues revival started happening, you know, with Robert Cray and people like that, and obviously Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I got really into Jimi Hendrix at first, you know, when I was in college. And then, you know, I played guitar since I was 16. Wasn't really singing hardly at all yet, but I couldn't really figure out how to play the Hendrix stuff. So I started, well, what did he listen to? What did he learn from? And I read that he was really into Chicago blues and Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Sonny Boy Williamson, you know, those cats.
Sure.
So I started checking those out on the college radio station. And from there on out, man, I just fell in love with blues, and I got into, you know, every I think my first blues record I fell in love with was Sonny Boy Williamson, One Way Out, second Sonny Boy, Rice Miller, and then Hound Dog Taylor, and then Albert King. I did a deep dive into Albert King. I got to see him when I was 20. And that really set my path. And then after that, it was Ronnie Earl, because Ronnie Earl would come down to Connecticut where I was going to school, and I would see him once I got to be of age. And
wow.
That blew my mind. You know, he'd be out in the audience playing like Whisper Soft and then bring it up to like a frenzy, man, and tear the roof off the place. So, yeah, that's kind of the short version. Yeah.
Nice. Now, do you kind of feel like because the Blues Brothers came out in the 80s, you think they kind of maybe kicked that resurgence off just a little bit?
Oh, they definitely helped. Yeah, I mean, I would say that was pretty big back then. I forget about that because I wasn't like super into the Blues Brothers or anything, but I mean, they brought a lot of people's careers back, you know, having all those cameos for people like James Brown and Aretha and Matt Guitar Murphy, and, you know, and the guys from Booker T and the MGs, you know, Steve Cropper, Duck Dunn. Yeah, I mean, I think that was a pretty big deal. Yeah, I mean, it was a joke at first, but then it did turn people onto the blues. But then it's like everywhere you turn around, you see some guy with like the Ray-Bans and the hat, you know, the fedora. I was like, okay, you know, maybe the joke's gone a little too far.
Well, I'm cheating a little bit because I just talked to Curtis Delgado not long ago, and I don't know if you know the story, but he was a big part of that.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I have to ask you, at what point in life did you realize that this music business gig was more than just a passing fancy for you?
Right, that's a good question, man. You know, it was a slow process because, you know, for years I had day gigs. You know, I had full-time day gigs all through my 20s, and then into my 30s I started, you know, working more like half-time. and I would, because I had more gigs. And then, I started having kids in 2002, 2004. That's when right around, I moved to Montpelier, Vermont, right? A little bit before that. I'd been in Vermont since 93, but,
Okay.
and so I started teaching guitar out of my house, to supplement the income from the gigs. And so pretty much at that point, in like 2003 or four, it was full-time doing music, whether it was teaching or playing, and for a long time, it was, kind of maybe 2/3 of my income was from teaching and a third was from playing. And then over time it just flipped. And now it's like, I barely teach and I'm just playing all the time. So, yeah.
That's really cool. And I
Yeah.
have to tell you, it's a fun story that you have because you've been holding court for years in New England, and it seems like you're finally breaking out a bit more post COVID. Am I correct there?
It seems like it. I mean, I've been doing, a lot of it is kind of timing. So, a lot of people who, started touring earlier when they're younger, are able to establish themselves earlier, and I didn't. Like I said, I really didn't start playing, more on the full-time side until I was in my 30s. And by then I had
Okay.
two young kids, so I couldn't really travel that much. And then I got
Right.
divorced, when my kids were like 7 and 10. So, and my ex went off to med school right away. So, like, someone needed to be with the kids. She was like super busy, like 70, 80 hours, 90, whatever it is in med school. So I was like, well, I want to make sure they grow up, with someone who's there to really pay attention to them and bring them to all their little, whatever, soccer games, dance classes, pick them up
Sure.
at the friend's house. So I was really that guy. And so I really, I would do my gigs still, but it was always, I got to be back at the end of the night. I got to drive back from wherever I am. So,
Right.
no
Right.
more than 2.5 hours away. So that kind of was, if you picture Montpelier, Vermont's in northern Vermont, that gets you to Burlington, Vermont. It gets you to, all over Vermont. It doesn't really get you to Boston. It doesn't really get you into Connecticut. I would occasionally go to those places, but I was really just kind of focused on, just Vermont, really, maybe over in Plattsburgh, New York. I got a big fan base over there. And then once my kids got older, now they're 20 and 23, the last, like, I would say just before COVID hit, I would say maybe 2018, I started touring more intentionally, more widely as my kids got to be more, self-sufficient, and their mom was finally a doctor and had more free time than she did, in medical school and residency.
Right.
So then I started doing jaunts out to the Midwest. I'd go as far as Minnesota. I've done that a bunch of times now, and I lost count. But I would go down to the Mid-Atlantic, down to D.C., and outside Baltimore and Delaware. Eastern Pennsylvania is like a hotbed for the blues, man. Those are serious blues lovers down there. Eastern Pennsylvania, Delaware. And so I'd go down there a bunch. And then I started going down to Florida a few years ago, down the whole East Coast and back. And then I've done a bunch of runs where we kind of do a loop through the South and come back through the Midwest. And I just kind of felt like I was Johnny Appleseed, just kind of like planting seeds. And then I figured once my kids be old enough, eventually I would, when I'm an empty nester, which is now, the last year and a half, essentially, I could connect the dots, Yeah, 2 years, I guess.
Very
Almost.
nice.
Yeah, and it's
Very
working out.
nice.
I mean, it was sort of a plan that, I fingers crossed, I'm healthy enough to still do it because, I'm
Yes,
not in
sir.
my 20s, I'm not in my 30s, I'm not in my 40s, don't tell anyone.
Well, listen, I have to tell you, as I was reading your accolades from your past accomplishments here, I was really impressed, Dave. In addition to those three BMA nominations, you've also racked up a few Blues Blast Award nominations in 27, 19, and 21. You won the 2012 IBC competition for Best Self-Produced Album, another Blues Blast Award nomination for Best Male Artist in 2021. You've performed with Fontella. Is it Fontella Bass? Is that correct?
Fontella Bass, yeah. She
Fontella
was the
Bass.
Rescue Me. That was her huge
Oh,
hit, right?
yeah.
She
And
paid
you
for
were
all
meant.
four of her kids to go through college with that one song.
Wow.
Yeah, incredible,
Now
right? And
you
she was like 15 or 16 when she recorded that. Yeah.
you were also
Rescue
meant.
me and hold
Go
me
ahead.
in your arms. That one, yeah.
Yep.
Everybody knows it, right? Yeah.
So not only did you perform with her, you were also mentored by deep soul singer Mighty Sam McClain.
Yeah.
And that's not all of it, but we couldn't possibly list it all because we just don't have enough time. Oh, yeah. And by the way, you also recorded with the Reverend Al Green's original high rhythm section. So are you having fun, Dave?
I am having fun. It's funny. It depends when you ask me. Sometimes it's just like, it's like the hamster wheel of it, because like for a modern musician, you just got to be doing this all the time. It's not just the
Sure.
recordings. It's not just the playing. It's all the social media. It's the marketing. It's the, the band management. It's the tour management. It's, the planning the whole recordings and stuff, raising money for that, because it's harder and harder to make money from selling CDs and things these days. It's the streaming is really taking the air out of that balloon. So, So I do feel like I'm working as hard as I've ever worked, if not a little harder, but I am seeing the fruits of it, which is really satisfying. But then again, it's also like, I'm kind of like an achievement oriented person. So as soon as I get one little thing, like I like enjoy that for a day and then I'm like, okay, on to the next thing. I'm trying to, as I get older, like, okay, take a step back, take a breath and really let it soak in and enjoy it and not feel like I always have to be like reaching for something.
Yeah.
I think it's hard, in the era of social media. I know, like, I have a lot of people come up to me like, "Wow, Dave, you're doing so great." And then I look, online, like you're so busy, right? And then I feel like, wow, that's great. Like, and then I see other people, I'm like, wow, they're even busier than I am, boy, or like, they're getting better gigs and stuff. It's hard not to get caught in the comparison trap. So I'm trying to be more aware of that and have it not just be about, having played this fantastic club or played this festival or, whatever it is, and have it just be more about playing music and enjoying playing with the people I play with, really enjoying connecting with the people who come to the shows, really having real connections with people, as best I can. And
You know,
writing songs that are meaningful. I mean, that's the other part of the equation. Oh God, sorry.
it's funny that you mentioned that because I've had similar conversations with a mutual friend of ours, Greg Nagy,
I love
and
Greg Nagy. Yes.
he's got that whole hamster wheel thing going. And of course, he's working on a brand new album right now, getting ready to
Yep.
put it out
Yep.
on the heels of the one he released last year. And I can understand and I can relate to it on a different level because I do the same thing with my podcast. I'm a one-man band here.
Right.
I line up the interviews, I do the
Right.
editing, I do the interviews, I do every portion of this, including the promotions. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. But
So,
I
yeah.
wanted to ask you, because you referred to the difference post COVID, what is the biggest difference about promoting your music and yourself now, aside from the issue related to streaming?
Post COVID, what's the biggest issue promoting the music? Um, I I think it's just hard. There's so much out there. It's insane. It used to be you'd go to the record store, you'd hear something on the radio. You listen to a blues show, for instance. In my
Yep.
20s, all I listened to was blues radio shows. I wouldn't listen to anything on the radio if it wasn't a radio show. Um, and so you'd like read the blues magazines maybe, or you go to a blues show, and you listen to the radio show rather than listen to the blues radio show, and that would give you ideas. And you go to the record store and you go find it, right? Or you'd ask the person behind the counter for suggestions. I remember going to my favorite record store. It was like the center of my universe was Cheapo Records in Central Square in Cambridge, Mass. It's still there. It's downsized a little
Nice.
bit, but and I
Nice.
remember going in there and I wanted to learn slide guitar. And I said, what's a good album for slide? I didn't really know much about it. I had a Hound Dog Taylor record, and they were like, "Oh, well, have you heard of this guy Robert Nighthawk? You should check him out." And this album, Robert Nighthawk, live on Maxwell Street in Chicago, and it's incredible. And it was certainly a huge influence on Ronnie Earl. I didn't learn that till years later, but like it was like a search for the good stuff, and there wasn't that much stuff out there at the time. It still felt like a lot. You go in the record store, there'd be thousands of records, right? But now you go on Spotify or one of these other streaming things, and they suggest a zillion different playlists too, and you listen through it, and it's all in squashed MP3s, which sound frankly like garbage. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no clear low end. You've lost 70% of the data. I don't want to complain and be negative, but I mean, the reality is it doesn't sound as good as CD. Certainly doesn't sound as good as vinyl. And
Right.
so it doesn't really hit me the same way. I'm listening through earbuds, which, like, what kind of sound reproduction is that compared to like your stereo or even your car stereo? So it doesn't really hit me that hard. And then like you're wading through so much stuff where there's been no gatekeeper. I mean, like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of record companies either. Like most people are like, yeah, the record companies are just stealing money from people. Sure, but at least they served a function, which was to make sure that stuff that entered the marketplace was of a certain level of quality, right? Had
Yeah.
something that maybe stood out that might sell records. And now, you go on and you're like, wow, 9/10 of this stuff sounds like, I don't know, it doesn't jump out at me. And maybe it's always been that way, even with the record companies in the past, but now there's just so much more of it that it's really hard for me to, hard to be as a fan, first of all, I guess is what I'm describing, but then it's hard for all the other people out there who are fans to find my stuff, because how am I going to jump out of the crowd, and get their
Right.
attention in the, zero point 0.2 seconds that they have when they see the little mini picture of me on their phone, where they're scrolling through. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still hopeful because, I got a new record that's going to be coming out this fall. It's basically a solo project with some amazing cats out of Boston. I can tell you more about that, but
Cool.
I just put my heart into it and hope that the music, you feel it as soon as you hear it. That's the goal. So
Very cool. I was reading about you performing with mystical soul guitarist Robert Ward in 2000,
yeah.
but also you performed with soul master Johnny Rawls. I've got to hear the story of how that came together, man.
Me and Johnny, or me and Robert, or both
Yeah,
of us?
you and Johnny.
Yeah. So Johnny is one of my best friends, I should just say, first of all. Like, he started off as this guy that I knew from his records. I knew not only from his own records, but the records he produced. He was, in JSP Records out of England. He was their house producer for a long time. And I had a lot of respect for him that way. I met him at a blues festival in southern Vermont, put on by Michael Cloran, who is the founder of the Poconos Blues Festival and later the Pennsylvania Blues Festival. He's a dear friend of mine now. At the time, I barely knew Michael, and he put on this great festival at Mount Snow ski area. And he brought Johnny up, and I showed up. Actually, I'd emailed Johnny in advance, I think, and it said, "Hey, I see you're running this like after hours jam, on the festival site, and I'd love to get to play and sit in if that's possible." And he didn't respond or anything. He's not a big emailer, and he's kind of old school that way. And I showed up at his set. I heard him, and I introduced myself. He said, "Oh, you're the guy that emailed me. Great. Just, yeah, sure. Come on down and we'll see. You got a guitar? You got an amp?" I was like, "Yeah." So in the course of the evening, he invited me up to sit in. "We got a fella here, Keeler from New Hampshire, Keller from Vermont, but fine, Got up there, man. Ervin, you're not gonna believe this one. So we're playing along. It's some kind of up-tempo tune. He points to me to take a solo, and I was nervous, and started playing like a bunch of notes, right? A lot of notes. And he's like, "Oh, hold on, Dave, hold on." And he stopped the band, practically stopped the band, brought it down. It's like really quiet.
Oh no!
And the place was packed, I got to say. And Michael was there, and all these other kind of heavy hitters in the blues were there that I would love to like leave a good impression on. And he's like, "Oh, too many notes, Dave. Too many notes. Try 3 or 4, maybe." And I near about pissed myself, man. I mean, really, like. And so I just took a deep breath, and drew it back and just tried to play more intentionally and melodically. And at the end of the song, I was ready to like run out of there with my tail between my legs. And he's like, "Whoa, where are you going?" No, hang out, man. You're good. And so I stayed up there. He kept me up there the whole rest of the evening, and even had me sing a couple tunes during the break when he went off to be with his lady. So and at the end of the night, he was walking out of the club. I remember he looked over his shoulder. He said, "Stay in touch. I might need you." So I stayed in touch, man. I was like, okay, yeah, he obviously liked my plan. And so we stayed in touch. And then I ran into him again at the Blues Music Awards down in Memphis. Because I was down there. I was on the Ronnie Earl record, Living in the Light in 2010. And it was nominated for Best Soul, Best Blues album, Blues Rock album of the year, I think, something like that. And Ronnie, it was really nice to have me on that record singing a couple tunes. I co-wrote one. And then so I was like, okay, I'm going to go down to the Blues Music Awards since I'm on the record, and I'll do, some networking, kind of meet some folks and see what happens. The doors cracked open a little bit, see if I can crack it open a little more. And I went down, I walked into the hotel where everybody was staying, and right away I see Johnny across from me. He spots me. He's like, "Keeler, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, just kind of hoping to meet some people and find some gigs, basically. He's like, "Oh." It's like, "I like that. I got a gig for you." And so he put me on this gig. It was the biggest blues festival in the Northeast, the North Atlantic Blues Festival in Rockland, Maine. Rockland, Maine, put on by Paul Benjamin, right on the coast of Maine. Gorgeous location. It's been around for a long time. It's actually the northernmost point on the Mississippi Blues Trail. They have a blues marker there.
And as Paul says, you can enjoy blues and lobster.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I don't eat a lobster, so it's hard for me to enjoy it. It's like a big cockroach. But I'll leave it to everybody else. But I don't know. I have no interest. But I went to the festival. I had a great time. So yeah, and so this is the great part, man. So Johnny's like, before the weeks before the festival, I'm like, "Hey, man," I email him. I say, "Hey, if you have any songs you want me to learn, send me a set list. I'm happy to learn them. Send me some files, whatever it is." Don't hear anything. Or he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, I will." I didn't hear anything back, right? And so I just went on, I went on online, bought a bunch of Johnny Rawls records, and I just started studying them and taking notes. And then I show up at the festival. I'm like, do you have a set list?" He's like, hold on. He reaches in his pocket, pulls out like what looked like a cocktail napkin, a little chicken scratch on there, really small. And I looked at it for like 2 seconds. He puts it away. He's like, I was like, he's like, oh, yeah, I need that. I need that. Okay. So I really had no idea what we were going to play. And then right before the show, we're in his Cadillac or whatever it was. His girlfriend's in the front seat and I'm in the back seat. And I'm like, Johnny, you got any advice, before the show? Like, he's like, well, just when you get the groove, don't never change it. Never change the groove. So, because I'm the rhythm guitar player, just like hang in the pocket. I was like, okay. So, yeah, that's what I did. Had my little gold lame shirt on, and it was sweaty and fun. And Johnny brought the crowd, all up and excited, and got every woman in there all worked up, and threatened to marry a few people that night. It was a great time. It's actually on YouTube. You can find it. Yeah. But yeah, it was a good time. That's how definitely. And then after that, when he started coming to New England, I would just weasel my way into being his backing band, basically. Yeah.
I've definitely got to look into this and just look at the history of the two of you guys working together. And honestly, I mean, you've gotten some pretty big breaks by being able to go on stage with him at the BMA Awards.
Absolutely.
That's got to be bigger than any blues festival you've ever played, yeah?
You are 100% correct, man. That's like the biggest gift. He's done that for me, and Ronnie Earl did the same. Ronnie Earl had me get up and sing some lines on one of his songs, and he didn't have to do that either. I mean, neither of these guys do. I think, and I'm starting to feel this a little bit, when you get to a certain age, you feel like, in addition to looking forward in your own career, you want to reach back and help the people who are coming up,
Yes, sir.
It's a real gift. And that's one of the beautiful things about the blues world, more so than the pop world, perhaps, or some of these other, things. But the roots genres, it's an oral tradition, a lot of it. And there's history to it. And it comes from deep cultural roots. And, I've tried to approach it, as like a Jewish white guy from sort of, from the North. I grew up in Massachusetts and I've lived in Vermont since 93.
Sure.
I realized kind of early on that, I love this music. Like, this music means more to me than any other music on the planet. I'm not going to play klezmer music just because I'm Jewish. I'm not going to play pop music because I'm a white guy, or whatever it is, so I love this music. And if I'm going to learn it, I'm going to learn it from the source, as close as I get to the source, and treat it with as much respect as it deserves. And that means treating the people who've been doing it and slogging along, like Johnny is a road dog. That guy's been on the road since he was 17, and he's like 74 now, more than 50 years.
Wow.
He's never stopped. So like, those people deserve our utmost respect. It's so vastly different than someone who's like a pop hit for a few years. These people devote their lives to it. And they're lucky if they were able to pay their mortgage, really. So, so yeah, they've given me these priceless gifts, shared their knowledge and their wisdom and their friendship with me. So I feel, just a deep sense of gratitude and a desire to pass it on as well. When I see people who are coming up behind me, who are really just committed to it and their heart's in it and they got that soul,
Speaking of the next group coming up,
yeah.
What do you see when you look out over the landscape of the blues and the younger generation coming on? What are you seeing right now?
I see a lot of people who are, like digital natives, right? Like, see, I grew up in the 80s, man, when like, a computer was something that, was sat on your desk. It wasn't in the palm of your hand, right? I didn't, when I was in college, like I was an English major, and like all my papers, man, I wrote them on like a typewriter,
Yep.
I mean, so like, I'm definitely not a digital native, but it's cool because the people coming up, they know how to use this stuff. They know how to go on TikTok. They know how to like, create reels and all this other stuff. And, my girlfriend's a little younger than me, so she helps me with this stuff, as she helped me to set this up so we could do a Zoom thing tonight, which I appreciate her. Loved Katie. But yeah, I think that's one thing. They're more knowledgeable about self-promotion, because they grew up with the expectation that they're going to have to promote themselves. Whereas people in my generation, it was a little more rare. Like, there's a lot of guys my age and women my age who are like, someone else is going to have to handle the business because, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's like almost below me, or like, that's not my job. I always approached it. You can tell me what you think, or people out there listening can see what they think. But like, my model for it has always been like a hand, right? So you have 5 fingers, right? Most people do. You've got, for me, it's like you got the songwriting, you got the singing, you got the guitar playing, and you get the band leading, performing, right? So those 4 things are the things I'm constantly working on. And sometimes, I'm a little ahead in one category, a little behind in the other. So, I haven't written any songs. If I haven't focused on the songwriting in a while, maybe I'll put that on the front burner for a while, or I feel like my singing, needs a little something, whatever it is. But then the thumb, that's the business part, right? And the thumb is really crucial. So you don't have to do it yourself, but if you don't, you're going to have to pay someone to do it, right?
Right.
Or you're going to sit around waiting for someone to do it. Like, I've never had a real agent come along and offer me any significant work. I mean, I got one guy that, gets me like a gig a month. He's great, but it's not like enough to pay my bills, So I've had to learn to be a booking agent. I've had to learn to be a marketing person. I've had to learn how to do the networking to connect with other musicians, to find gigs in these other places. That's what's beautiful about the blues world, I might add, is that people are really, they have each other's back. It's not, I mean, yeah, of course, everything's competitive in its own way, I suppose, maybe for those prime festival spots. But going to the Blues Music Awards, going to the IBCs, traveling around a bunch, I've met so many great musicians who've opened up their homes to me, to do a house concert there or stay there, or they'll do a gig with me, we'll do a split bill, or there'll be a special guest in my band, or I'll be a special guest with their band. And that's really opened up the world, that plus the blues societies. So it's been really cool, man. I've made great friends that way. The only shame is they don't all live in Vermont. I can't see them all the time, so I got to go on the road to see them. But that's a good thing, too. I like being on the road.
Well, it's got to be a fun thing. And again, you remind me so much of Greg in so many ways. I have to ask you, though, how old are you?
I was born in 67, so I'll be 58 in September.
All right. Yeah. So I'm 2 years older than you. I just turned 60.
Yeah.
And as you're talking about growing up in the 80s and, the four fingers and the thumb and all that, the difference is with me, I'm a little bit different in that regard because I just kind of swallowed it up and said, I'm going to do it because, and I don't know if it's that I don't trust somebody else, but I don't trust somebody else because I started this thing, on a shoestring.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna brag for 1 minute here. Please forgive me.
Yeah.
We are the only currently produced podcast that is housed on the Blues Archive at the University of Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
So when I talk about collecting stories like we're doing right now, I'm all about this. Do you think I want to trust somebody else that doesn't have the passion that I've got for this to potentially drop the ball?
Yeah, and that's how I feel about my music as well. I'm almost like a control freak about it in my own way. I'm sure my band members would slightly agree. Like I'm a benevolent dictator, but ultimately, it is like in this era we have the ability to control our careers more. In that way, and it doesn't mean you're going to be rich or famous or whatever, but you can eke out a career. I feel lucky to do that. I know Greg feels lucky. I know, Johnny Rawls is kind of. He's done it all himself, he works occasionally with an agent here or there, but he books himself,
I look back in, when I first started out with this, trying to be a voice above that 4.5 million other podcasters. And it's a daunting task. And so when I talk to musicians like yourself, even Joe Bonamassa, when I talked to him, one of the things that he talked about is, all those years, that 16 years that he struggled before he broke out.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful testament to what you do and the passion that you have for the music. And it's wonderful to see the good that's happening for you now, honestly, Dave. And listen, you got 10 albums out there, beginning with your 1998 release called Faith. Your latest release from 23 entitled It's Time to Shine. And by the way, I got to find somebody that has a copy of that because I want you to sign that. And I got a room on my wall here. I got a spot on my wall to frame and put it when I find it. But I can't find it anywhere. It's not available on eBay. It's not on Discogs.
Okay.
No.
I had Michelle Castillo did my radio promo. We sent out 625 of those suckers.
Wow.
So they're out there in the world. Like a lot of these days, once they're done with them, they just resell them on eBay. So that'll be. It's going
to be one of those things where I'm going to stumble on it and I'm going to reach out to you and go, "Hey, dude, you get to sign it now."
Well,
but it's really kind of cool because when I look at your album, It's Time to Shine, it kind of sounded like it's a little bit prophetic for you. So I have to ask you now.
Yeah.
What do you have simmering on the stove these days musically, Dave? You got any new projects we need to talk about?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you asking. I do just want to touch on what you just said, which is it was sort of like a double meaning for that album because it was after the pandemic and we were all coming out of the pandemic.
Yes.
And I felt like it's time for all of us to shine. That's why I didn't call it It's My Time to Shine. It's time to shine, I was going to call it My Time to Shine because actually the title track is called My Time to Shine because that's
Yes,
the
sir.
lyric in the song. But the album itself is really about, it's really time for all of us to kind of come out of our little dark little huts, in our caves and, connect with each other and, be seen and share what we have with the world, whatever that is, whatever makes us special. Everybody's got something that makes them special. I'm convinced of that. So, and then, yeah, so that was, and it was also, yeah, I did feel like, okay, like my kids are grown. I can finally, really get out there and do more of what I've been trying to do. I can kind of expand further and, play more and all that stuff. So yeah, the two projects I have right now going on, well, next spring, my buddy Johnny and Rawls and I are going to be releasing a record together, which I'm really excited about.
Nice.
We recorded it last summer in outside Toledo at the Third Street Cigar Records, which is the label he's been working on for a while. It's with my band, and it's us doing old school soul tunes. Each one is associated with a different one of the mentors that he had when he was young.
Wow.
So everybody from O.V. Wright, who he did a whole tribute album to O.V. Wright, that, which is a great album, by the way. And Otis Clay, who he did a record with. Otis, it was kind of like this, where Otis was the older kind of brother, and they did, some back and forth singing together. It was great. So yeah, but each one, this is my idea, was to like honor Johnny's mentors, and he got so excited about it, so we did it, a tune each by Joe Tex,
Nice.
Willie Hightower, ZZ Hill, Little Johnny Taylor, Otis Clay, O.V. Wright, James Carr, Eddie Floyd, Lattimore, Tommy Tate, who's an obscure guy but was a fantastic songwriter. Yeah, it came out great. I'm so excited about Johnny. Every time I talk to him, he's like, Dave, man, this record, man, we're sitting on a powder keg. Dave. I was like, oh, all right, Johnny, cool, man. I'm just happy he's happy with it. But and then we got it's all mastered and everything's basically all done. We're just kind of getting the graphics together and stuff, and we're starting to send out advanced copies in the next month to festivals for next summer, and then we'll be getting it out to radio. It's going to be called Tribute to Soul. So pretty simple.
Very cool.
And it came out beautifully. We added horns on it, and it's kind of like Sam and Dave, except it's Johnny and Dave. So yeah.
Do me a favor. Make sure I get a copy. I'll give you my contact information when we're done here.
Yeah.
I have a standing rule. Whenever you're on the show, you have a new album, you are welcome to come back and promote that new album, promote a tour. There's always a microphone here for you. Okay.
So the other record is one I'm really proud of as well. It's almost the polar opposite of the one with Johnny. It's an acoustic record for the most part. It's not with my band. I'm the only singer. I don't even play guitar on it. I hired an incredible guitar player, super sensitive, super soulful, to play acoustic guitar and lap steel on it. So how I didn't play with Mighty Sam, but Mighty Sam was a dear friend of mine, Mighty Sam McClain. And back in the 90s, when Mighty Sam had his comeback after years of being, homeless and struggling, trying to get his name out there, living in New Orleans and Nashville, he moved up to New England and he recorded his comeback album, which was Give It Up to Love. And then there was a follow-up album to that, Keep On Moving. The guitar player on those two records is Kevin Barry, who's out of the Boston area. He tours with Jackson Browne. Like, he's Jackson Browne's guitar player. He plays all those David Lindley parts since David Lindley's gone, And he also tours with Roseanne Cash. He's toured with Ray LaMontagne. This guy's like top shelf, really sensitive guitar player. Not flashy, just sensitive. So he played on it. Jesse Williams from the North Mississippi All-Stars. He's left them since then, but he was with them for a bunch of years. He plays with Jimmy Vivino. He plays with Duke Robillard. Fantastic bass player. He plays upright on most of the album, plays electric on a couple cuts. And then Betty Levette's keyboard player, Tom West, and drummer, Marco Giovino, who has also played with everybody from Robert Plant to Tom Jones and on down. Man. These guys are also on the record. So this is my band. Jesse put it all together. Jesse and I are friends. Jesse Williams, the bass player. So we recorded outside Boston. It's all original. These are the tunes from, I call it the Song Orphanage. Like every time I make a record, I kind of go visit the Song Orphanage. And there's all these tunes there. They're like, oh, pick me, And like, I realized I guess it was not this past winter, but the winter before, I had like 100 tunes that I never recorded really other than on my iPhone, And so I picked my favorite ones. And I said, these are ones that if God forbid something happened to me tomorrow, I would want to have recorded as a legacy, But they don't fit in a soul blues bag necessarily. They're more like, They could be singer-songwriter tunes. They could be like country tunes, except I don't have a country accent, But they're kind of like I don't know. I don't even know what to call them. They're just songs, and they're ones I feel really proud of. So I recorded with these guys. We did it very stripped down. There's a lot of space. It's really sensitive, and it came out beautifully. We just left a lot of space on there. It's really, I think it's really powerful. I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be called. Oh, I can't tell you the name yet, but yeah, it'll be out in like probably October. Yeah.
Okay, so you got to come back twice now.
All right, man. I'll hold you to that.
All right, now.
Yes.
Here's the most important question
right,
of the day for you, Dave.
I'm all ears, man. I'm all ears.
Where can people go to learn more about Dave Keller? Maybe buy some music or merch, or book you for a gig?
Oh, I appreciate that, man. I kept it real simple. Back in the early days of the internet, I snagged DaveKeller.com. So there are other Dave Kellers. If you go on YouTube, there's some guy who does financial forecasting or something. I mean, type in Dave Keller music or blues or something to find me. But DaveKeller.com. It's got everything on there. It's got a link to like the store link. It goes to my Bandcamp page. And Bandcamp is great. They only take like 15% or something like that. So that's me. And like I will literally ship the CD to you. I've got vinyl too, actually. I know I mentioned it to you, but I've got colored vinyl. I've even got a limited edition gold vinyl, like clear gold. Oh, they're beautiful. Yeah, with a poster and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I'll fulfill it myself and send it out to you. And that's got my schedule on there. So yeah, got all kinds of cool dates coming up. Last weekend I was in Pennsylvania and Maryland. I'm headed to Pennsylvania this weekend, and the next weekend I'm headed to my first Canadian gig. I'm playing up in New Brunswick, Campobello Island. There's a festival up there called Fog Fest. And then I get back from that, and I've got like a couple of weeks. We're going out to Michigan. That's why Greg set me up with you, man. He was like, oh, you should talk to this guy, Erv. He's in Michigan. He does a show.
And where are you going to be in Michigan? You might as well put that out there. Come on, talk about it.
Yeah, sure. I can tell you exactly, man. It's about old school, man. This is straight out of the 80s.
I got one just like that over there across the room.
Yeah. So, I can tell you, well, on my way out, I'll be in Ashtabula, Ohio on August 8th.
Okay.
And at Dublin Down, I'll be in Traverse City on the 9th. On the 10th, I'll be at Gull Landing in Pentwater, Michigan. On the 11th, I'll be on Betsy Bay in Alberta, Michigan at the Waterfront Park. On the 12th, August 12th, I'll be in Manistee at the First Street Beach. On the 13th, I'll be in Ludington, Michigan at the Waterfront Park. The 14th, Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion in Cadillac, Michigan. And then on the 15th, I'll be in Reed City at Rambo Park.
That's crazy. You're like living here for a week or two.
I am. Well, we got a band house. And on the 16th, we're playing in the town where we have the band house, Baldwin, Michigan. We're playing at the Wanger Pavilion. And then the 17th, we're headed back east. We're going to Sharon James Cellars in, what's the name of the town in Ohio? Newberry, Ohio. It's kind of northeast Ohio in the wine country.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go, folks. If you're in Northwest Lower Michigan or anywhere over on the west side of the state, look this guy up, buy some tickets. Matter of fact, I've got some friends up in Ludington. I'm going to turn them on to you and let them know if they can't catch you in Ludington, they can always catch you in Manistee, which is right up the road.
Is that how you pronounce it? Manistee. Okay.
Yeah, Manistee.
I had the accent all wrong there. Hey, another thing I want to mention was just on October 28th, I'm looking for a gig in Michigan somewhere. So if anyone wants to hire me on Tuesday, October 28th, I'm going to be doing a 5-week tour all around the country, coast to coast. So that's my open date in Michigan, October 28th.
Well, you know what? I just made a note here. I'm going to pass it along and we'll see if we can get it filled. Because I'll tell you, honestly, wouldn't it be cool if we got you and Greg together to just gig and have a good time?
Do it in your studio, man. Invite people. Make it like invite only, kind of thing.
I wish my studio was bigger because I do that. It's 10 feet wide by 5 feet deep. And I don't think you and him with your guitars would get in here very well.
Maybe out in your yard.
There you go. Well, Dave Keller, it has indeed been a pleasure, sir. I promise you that I'll be paying attention to your career from this point forward. And any time that you have news of a new album, like I just told you, like the aforementioned soon-to-be released albums or a tour, give me a call, and you always have a microphone here, sir. Thank you so much for joining me.
Ervin, I just want to say thank you. And thanks to anyone who's followed the show the whole time and stared at my little head here. I cannot watch these things because I'm way too distracted. So thank you for watching, and thank you for your time. Yeah.
Very good. Well, as this episode comes to a close, I want to tell you about the VFW National Home located just about 30 minutes southwest of my current location in Eaton Rapids, Michigan. The VFW National Home assists military, veterans, and their families and children by creating a foundation of services and resources to achieve their personal and family goals in order to move forward in a positive, safe, and healthy environment. Among the many things offered through the VFW National Home are single-family homes within the community at no cost, tutoring, classes, secondary financial assistance, and educational resources to empower and grow. And by the way, they also offer licensed daycare for their residents at no charge. Visit VFW National Home today, vfwnationalhome.org today, or to learn more, you can give them a call, but you also can make a tax-deductible donation right there on their website. And as always, thank you so much for your consideration. And that wraps up this edition of Time Signatures. Once again, my thanks to our guest, Dave Keller, but also to you, for without you, none of this would be possible. Jim Ervin reminding you, keeping the blues alive is everyone's responsibility, but preserving the history of the blues, one story at a time, that's my mission. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. For more information on cabs, visit capitalareablues.org. You can find this episode and past episodes at lccconnect.org. The Time Signatures theme song, Michigan Roads, is used by permission and was written by Root Doctor, featuring Freddie Cunningham.
You know I'm trying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
Until next time, keep on keeping the blues alive.